Coming up today, the wait is over. The reunion event for war-separated families begins this morning at North Korea's Mount Kumgang resort. We have a special report. The defense chiefs of South Korea and Japan are set to meet in Seoul. The officials will discuss military information sharing to deter threats from North Korea. Plus, President Park Geun-hye carries out a cabinet reshuffle. She replaces her land and oceans ministers and several vice ministers. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, October 20th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we begin with the highly anticipated inter-Korean family reunions in what is sure to be an extremely emotional time. War-separated families on the Korean peninsula will reunite for the first time in over 60 years later today. Gwon-soa is in Sokcho, Gangwon-do province, where the South Korean family members are just a couple of hours away from crossing the border to Mount Kumgang in North Korea, where the event will take place. Soa, good morning.
Morning, Mark. Well, it is the moment. The moment is approaching. The moment families that have been separated by the war have been waiting for more than 6 decades. And I can imagine that the South Korean families that have been spending their night here at Hanwha Resort in Sokcho could not sleep well because of the anticipation and the excitement, of course. Now, this reunion event is the first in almost 2 years, and it's only around 380 people from the south and 96 from the north that'll meet during the first round of reunions until the 22nd of October, and 188 from the north and 90 from the south between the 24th and 26th. Now, I'm saying only since the number of families torn apart and alive is around 66,000. And time is running out for these elderly people. And those who were lucky enough this time all had their own heartbreaking stories that I got to listen to. So let's take a look.
When the June 25th war broke out, my sister and I were parted. I was 13 and she was 18. I made this pencil case for her. Other things I couldn't bring for her because they're too big and big things are not allowed.
We didn't know because we lost contact. Our brother in the north applied. 5 of us are going to meet our oldest brother.
Now, judging by previous reunions, we just know how emotionally charged these events can be, of course, for the families involved, but also for the country as a whole. And so, you reported on Monday about the families going through a kind of pre-session to get them prepared. What's next on the schedule?
Many of them are already awake, and some are having breakfast right now. And in around 2 hours from now, they will be heading on to the buses to take them through the Customs Immigration Quarantine Office in order to cross the border to the north and go to the Mount Kumgang Resort. And there they will have their first official meeting all together. They will be gathered in a big hall. And on the next day, they will also have some private meetings. Now, in total, the families will meet for 3 days, but their actual time together will only be 12 hours. But that is an extension from the usual 11 due to a request by the South Korean Unification Ministry. Now, it's seen as a good sign that the North agreed to this request. So many families who haven't been able to see their loved ones yet are desperately hoping that this reunion event will become a regular event. Now, this has been Gwon-soa reporting live from Sokcho Hanwha Resort.
Thank you very much, Soa, for that report, and we'll keep you updated on the reunions throughout the day here on Arirang TV. Now, in other news, South Korea and Japan will discuss ways to boost defense cooperation and other bilateral security issues during a ministerial meeting later on this Tuesday. Seoul's Defense Minister Han Min-gu will hold talks with his Japanese counterpart Gen Nakatani in Seoul this afternoon and resume negotiations on sharing military intelligence to deter missile and nuclear threats from North Korea. During the meeting, the Japanese minister is expected to explain Tokyo's new security laws that allow its military to fight abroad for the first time since World War II. Seoul's defense minister, for his part, is expected to reaffirm South Korea's stance that Japanese troops will not be allowed to practice collective self-defense on the Korean peninsula without Seoul's consent. President Park Geun-hye has carried out a partial cabinet reshuffle. She has replaced 2 ministers, 6 vice ministers, and her senior presidential secretary for foreign affairs. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
President Park Geun-hye named Kim Gyu-hyun, Deputy Chief of the Presidential Office of National Security, as her new senior presidential secretary for foreign affairs. The Presidential Office of Cheongwade said Monday that considering his expertise in both foreign affairs and security-related issues, Kim, a career diplomat, is fit for the post. Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yong has been tapped to succeed Kim. Ju Cheol-gi, President Park's key aide for foreign affairs since she took office, reportedly stepped down to take responsibility for the setback in Korea's KF-X fighter jet program. His stepping down comes after the U.S. rebuffed Korea's request for the 4 key technologies needed for the KF-X program during President Park's visit to Washington last week. President Park nominated Kang Ho-in, former chief of the Public Procurement Service, as Transport Minister, and Vice Maritime Minister Kim Young-suk to head the ministry. The 2 will first have to undergo National Assembly confirmation hearings, for which the dates have yet to be set. President Park also replaced 6 vice ministers, including Foreign Affairs, Defense, and Finance. The presidential office says the reshuffle, which comes about 6 months ahead of the April general elections, is intended to effectively improve state affairs and the government's reform measures. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye has proposed talks with rival party leaders and floor leaders to debrief them on her trip to the US and urge them to pass long-pending bills. The ruling Saenuri Party welcomed President Park's proposal. It said it could ease political tension in the National Assembly over plans to publish a single state-authored history textbook. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, has yet to respond to the president's proposal. Watchers expect the party to put the textbook issue on the negotiating table. The meeting could be held as early as Thursday. Now, South Korea's rival political parties have issued opposing assessments of President Park Geun-hye's recent summit with her US counterpart Barack Obama at the White House. Our Jim Young-gil has the details.
The ruling Saenuri Party hailed the first joint statement exclusively on North Korea, adopted by the leaders of Korea and the US.
President Park Geun-hye's U.S. visit was a great success as both leaders issued a joint statement on North Korea's denuclearization for the first time. The summit deal has created momentum for Korea and the U.S. to jointly respond to Pyongyang's nuclear program.
Ruling party floor leader Won Ye-chul stressed that during the summit, President Park was also successful in displaying the comprehensive nature of the Korea-US alliance. He and other party members anticipate it will help Seoul play a crucial role in promoting peace and stability in Northeast Asia during a trilateral summit between Korea, China, and Japan slated for early next month. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy said the summit agreement fell short of expectations and pointed out that progress is needed for high-level inter-Korean talks.
Dialogue between the two Koreas is urgent, and six-party talks must resume to resolve North Korea's nuclear crisis. We should be calling on partner countries to help support this process.
Offering up its own response to the latest summit deal, Pyongyang said it would never give up its nuclear arsenal unless the U.S. rolls back its hostile policy towards the north. But the communist country has come under growing pressure from regional neighbors to abandon its nuclear weapons development. Similar significant statements were issued after summits between President Park and Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Xi and Obama all calling for North Korea to end its provocations and return to the negotiating table. Kim Young-gyun, Arirang News.
Now, parliamentary standing committees at the National Assembly are scheduled to continue their review of next year's government budget plan today. But a tough road lies ahead as rival party lawmakers remain deeply at odds over funding for a planned state-authored history textbook. Now, relevant committees, including the Finance, Foreign Affairs and Unification committees, will hold a plenary session on this Tuesday to deliberate and attempt to vote on the 2016 budget and other pending bills. A fierce clash is expected at the Finance Committee in particular, while ruling and opposition party lawmakers debate over setting aside a special budget for publishing the government-issued textbooks. Under the current law, lawmakers have until December 2nd to approve the budget plan. China's GDP grew at 6.9% in the third quarter. Now, that's better than predicted, but still the worst since 2009. And this could spell trouble for Korea, given that it's so reliant on China for exports. Kim Min-ji reports.
Indicating a slowing China, the world's second-largest economy saw its GDP growth rate fall to its slowest level since the global financial crisis. Beijing's GDP grew 6.9% in the July to September period from a year ago, slightly better than market expectations of 6.8%, but below 7% for the first time in over 6 years. This air of uncertainty raises doubts about China being able to reach its growth target of about 7% this year.
As for the reason why the growth slightly slowed in the third quarter, I think the main reason is that the international and domestic economic and financial situation showed new trends and new issues in the third quarter.
China's economy has been heading downhill since 2007, and other economic indicators are adding to concerns that Beijing's slowdown may be worse than first thought. Industrial output rose 5.7% in September from a year earlier, below forecasts of 6% growth. Fixed asset investments, another major driver of the economy, also fell below market estimates of 10.8%. This is despite China's efforts to lift its ailing economy by cutting interest rates and devaluating its currency. It raises concerns for Korea, with more than a quarter of its outbound shipments heading to Beijing.
China's slowing economic growth rate will have a negative impact on Korea. Korea has already seen its exports to Beijing fall, and as China turns to focus on expanding its domestic supply of intermediary goods, Korea's trade to China can only head downhill.
Experts say while Beijing may take further stimulus measures to prop up growth, Korea will need to diversify its exporting countries in order to reduce dependence on China, as well as focus more on exporting finished goods or consumer goods. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
At least 10 people have now been confirmed dead and more than 60,000 displaced in the Philippines after Typhoon Kopu smashed into the island nation, destroying homes and crops. Heavy rain, landslides and floods are affecting dozens of villages, with many cut off from rescue teams as well. Kopu has been downgraded to a severe tropical storm by Japan's weather agency, which is responsible for tracking it, but the Philippines' own weather agency is still characterizing it as a typhoon. Some forecasts suggest the storm will continue dumping heavy rain on parts of the Philippines until at least Wednesday. Kopu is the second strongest storm to hit the Philippines this year. The world's leading scientists and experts are gathered in Korea's central city of Daejeon for the World Science Forum. They're discussing how the power of science can affect the future of the global economy, major industries and society as a whole. Our Oh Seung reports.
With scientific development proliferating by the day, how should the global society respond to such changes and create a better world? Nobel Prize laureates, scientists and leaders from around the world gathered on Monday in the city of Daejeon to address this question and more at the World Science and Technology Forum. The 5-day event kicked off with a speech from renowned economist Jeremy Rifkin.
It's becoming clear that we're on the cusp of a new economic paradigm based on a new approach to science and technology that might allow us to chart a new journey for the human race, if we can get there in time.
Experts held sessions throughout the day to discuss topics like innovation and the future of production.
3D printing is going to completely overhaul our manufacturing landscape. If you think about the impact to supply chain, to distribution, to building a distributed manufacturing layer where things aren't produced in one location and shipped across the world, but they're produced in every location. You download a file, you go to your local Kinko's, you print something out, and you have a finished product.
The theme of creating a common future also had scientists sharing their views on global issues, like curbing climate change and poverty through sustainable and affordable technology.
Then affordable energy, green energy, so solar irrigation, that is 1/5 the cost of conventional, and biomass at scale in village plants to replace coal.
The scope of discussions expanded to outer space with NASA's project to venture to Mars in the early 2030s.
On a common cause to learn about our solar system, as well as, and that in turn helps us to learn more about our planet. If you think about global warming, Mars and Venus give us two very different examples.
Experts hope the fruit of today's discussions will lead to global cooperation and effective policies at the OECD's ministerial meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Daejeon.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Thank you as always for watching. Goodbye.